I'm honored to introduce Dean Doug Elmendorf. He's been the Dean and Don K. Price Professor of Public Policy at the Harvard Kennedy School since 2016. He had a visiting fellow at the Brookings Institute after serving as the director of the Congressional Budget Office from January 2009 through March 2015. He had previously been a senior fellow at Brookings, assistant director. I apologize for that. Assistant Director of the Division of Research and Statistics at the Federal Reserve Board, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Policy at the Treasury Department, Senior Economist at the White House's Council on Economic Advisors, and an Assistant Professor at Harvard University. In those policy roles, Doug worked on budget policy, healthcare issues, and macroeconomic effects of fiscal policy, Social Security, income security programs, financial markets, macroeconomics analysis, and forecasting, and a range of other topics. He earned his PhD in AM in economics from Harvard University and his AB summa cum laude from Princeton University. Please join me in welcoming Dean Elmendorf. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Reunion. Welcome back to campus. It is wonderful to have you all here. I hope you enjoy every minute of this celebration of your milestone anniversaries. I want to talk for a little bit, and then I'm happy to take questions on anything I've said or anything I haven't said that's on your minds. Let me begin with some thanks. I am grateful to all of you for being here. For those of us who have the chance to be on campus every day, it's terrific to have our other community members back with us. I'm especially grateful to the Reunion volunteers who have worked closely with our Alumni Relations Office and the HKS Fund to help make Reunion a success. These volunteers have helped to shape the format and programming for this reunion. They've recruited and motivated others to come, and they've helped to raise critical funds to support our students, and I'm very grateful to the volunteers. I'm grateful to all of you who have made gifts to the HKS Fund to support your reunion. In honor of your reunion, rather, to support our students. Support from the alumni community provides crucial funding for financial aid for your successors. And that financial aid is the most powerful tool we have for attracting superb students to the Kennedy School. Our top fundraising priority is to significantly increase financial aid so that more talented and deserving students can have the life-changing experiences that you remember having here yourselves. I'm thrilled that more than 700 alumni celebrating a reunion this year have made gifts to the HKS Fund so far. I want to give a special shout out to two classes. The class of 2004 has the highest participation rate, so thank you. And the class of 1989 is collecting the highest dollar total. So thanks to the class of 89. And as important as the financial support that many of you are generously providing is the time that many of you are taking to interact with other members of the Kennedy School family. I'm so appreciative of all of our alumni who have talked up the school to potential students, who have served as PAE clients, hosted summer internships, or helped current students in other ways. I'm appreciative of all of our alumni who are reaching out to each other, helping to maintain the Kennedy School spirit among those of you who have been here in the past. Our community holds together because you work to hold it together. And I'm just so pleased at the power of our alumni community working with each other and working in the world. Our mission as the Harvard Kennedy School community has never been more important. We are living in a time of great challenges in the world. Wars between nations and peoples, weakening democracy in many countries, severe and persistent inequities, struggles by too many people to eke out a living, alarming changes in the climate, and more. But these challenges are not insuperable. When I welcomed our new students to the school last fall, I urged them to act with hope in whatever they did. And I explained that hope is not ungrounded optimism, that everything will automatically turn out fine. Instead, hope is a conviction that one can make a positive difference in how things turn out. And we have good reasons for that kind of hope. Despite all the problems in the world, many good things are happening as well, and they're happening in part because principled and effective public leaders and policymakers are helping to make them happen. That's what the Kennedy School is all about. So although this is a time of great challenges, it is also a time of great opportunity. On campus, across this country, and around the world, the Kennedy School's alumni, students, faculty, staff, and friends are seizing this opportunity. We are taking on the hardest public challenges, working to advance peace, freedom, fairness, prosperity, and sustainability. And through the excellence of our teaching, research, and engagement with policymakers, we are making a positive difference. I want to say a few words about the upheavals at Harvard this year, and you may have more questions, and that would be fine. This has been a complicated and anxious time at the university, and I would not pretend otherwise. But I want to assure you of two things. First, almost all of what has taken place at the Kennedy School this past year has been what you remember. Students have studied, gone to class, discussed issues of the day, and spent time learning from our faculty and from each other in and out of class. Faculty members have taught, written, studied, and engaged with policymakers and public leaders. Staff members have cared for students, played key roles in research and outreach, and kept the campus running. Certainly, emotions have been running high and for understandable reasons, but we have done our work and maintained respectful interactions among members of the Kennedy School community. The second thing I want to assure you of is that President Alan Garber and Interim Provost John Manning have worked with the deans, the faculty, and staff of the various Harvard schools to address problems that have emerged or worsened during this past year. Alan served as provost for a dozen years. He is known and respected across the university. John Manning has been the very effective dean of Harvard Law School for several years. Alan and John are leading the university's determined efforts to expand and encourage civil discourse, to enforce policies regarding disruption and discrimination, to teach about what is happening in Israel, Gaza, and elsewhere in the world, to counter anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim and anti-Arab bias, to develop a new approach to institutional voice, and more. This work is Harvard-wide, but I am pleased to say that Harvard Kennedy School has been in the vanguard. Let me say a little bit more about civil discourse in particular. In this country and elsewhere in the world, we are experiencing widespread divisions between people and a lack of true dialogue between people. Universities have a vital role to play in these circumstances in fostering open discussion of difficult issues on campus as part of the learning process and in preparing students to be effective leaders and citizens in a diverse political and social landscape after they graduate. We have been working toward these goals for several years at the Kennedy School, including making changes in our applications, our orientation programming, and much more. But I decided 2 years ago that we were not making enough progress, so I commissioned then a working group of faculty, students, and staff to identify the barriers to civil discourse at the Kennedy School and to recommend specific steps we could take to push back those barriers. That working group reported last fall, and we are now implementing its recommendations to strengthen what we call candid and constructive conversations. Harvard Magazine has written about our work. Other schools at Harvard, to be sure, are engaged in some related activities. And the working group's report and much more information is available on the Kennedy School website under Candid and Constructive Conversations. I encourage you to take a look and to send us your reactions to what you see. The key point we're trying to make in our community on campus is simple. The ability to disagree constructively across difference is crucial for learning and working together. It is a core competency for effective policymaking and public leadership. So we need to foster a campus environment of curiosity and humility, an environment in which all members of our community feel heard and respected, an environment where everyone engages vigorously with competing perspectives. And then the other topic I want to speak to specifically is to thank you for your partnership with me during my time as dean. 9 years ago, next month, I was named as the Dean of the Kennedy School. I had spent a decade at Harvard as a PhD student and an assistant professor, but I had been away from Harvard for more than 2 decades, and I did not know the Kennedy School well, in contrast with our new dean. So I had a lot to learn and a community to become part of. I am so grateful for your warm welcome to me and for all that I have learned from you. Throughout my time as dean, I've had the opportunity to talk with so many alumni on campus and in my travels across the country and around the world. Just in the past year, I've spoken with alumni at events in 8 countries outside of this one and multiple cities within this country. Whenever I've met with alumni, I have learned more about the school, about its history and mission, about its people, about its shortcomings, and about its possibilities for the future. I've tried to use all I've learned to help make the school better, and your comments, questions, and suggestions over these 9 years have made me a better dean at doing that and have helped to make the Kennedy School even better. So I'm very grateful to you, and I love the job. But as much as I love the job, I also miss thinking and writing about economic policy, which is my original sort of training. And I think organizations benefit from periodically refreshing their leadership and bringing in new ideas and perspectives. So come July, I will be simply a member of the Kennedy School faculty, and Jeremy Weinstein will be our dean. As I said yesterday at the meeting of the Alumni Association, I'm thrilled that Alan Garber has selected Jeremy as the dean. He is both an outstanding scholar of public policy and an accomplished practitioner. His research has addressed a range of issues in economic development, international relations, immigration, technology, democracy, and other topics of central importance at the school. He has also served in senior roles at the White House's National Security Council and the U.S. mission to the United Nations. So he excels at both deep thinking that can inform policymaking and at the execution of policy. He is also, as you know, an alumnus of the Kennedy School and the first alumnus to serve as our dean. My plea to all of you is to be as engaged and committed with him as you have been with me. Bring him your suggestions, bring him your questions, bring him your ideas, talk with him, help him understand how the Kennedy School mattered for you, how it can matter for others, how it can become even better, how we can seize even more fully the important opportunities and responsibilities that the Kennedy School has in the world. I look forward to the still greater heights that the Kennedy School will reach in the years ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here today. Hope you have a wonderful reunion. Thank you. Thank you. So, in Kennedy School tradition, the floor is open for your comments. We have microphones in 2 spots here. If you want to ask a question, please go to a microphone, identify yourself and the class you are in, and then let us know what's on your minds, and I will be eager to hear from you and to offer any useful responses I can. Please.
Hi, I'm from the class of 1999, the MPP program, Jennifer Wilson. So this country is very torn apart politically, and the Kennedy School is here in Boston where it's very comfortable and safe. Would you think about opening a campus or opportunities in parts of the country with very different ideologies?
That's a great question. So I have not thought about that. In general, Harvard has been backward-leaning on opening large outposts. We think of that often in a global sense. There are Harvard offices in a number of countries around the world, but the university has not opened campuses anywhere else. I've been to a few of those offices. They tend to be quite small, landing spots in a way. But mostly what we've done is to try to send faculty and students out around the world and then to have people come from around the world to Harvard. So I thought about the Kennedy School in a similar way in this country. I do think it's crucially important that we expose our students who are here to a wider range of viewpoints than we have been able to do so far. That's been a concern of mine since I arrived. I've worked at it, and it remains, alas, a concern of mine today. I still believe, as I've said many times before, that if we had more strong conservative voices at the Kennedy School, that would be empowering for our conservative students and bracing for our liberal students, and both groups would be better off as a result. And so one way to do that is to make sure that we're reaching out to parts of the country that look different from Massachusetts in a whole variety of ways. And we're trying to do that in our recruitment of students, certainly. We think about that in faculty terms. We think about that in terms of speakers, fellows, certainly. I don't know whether we should try to have a branch somewhere else. I think that's a really good question. So I share the motivation, I think, that you're bringing. I'll have to think more about whether I think we can do that in a way that would be effective, and I'll talk about that with Jeremy. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi. Ooh. Jody Litvak, class of 84. Yay, class of 84 over here. Woo! Over there. So this is a bit of a valedictory period for you. As you're getting ready to leave, this is a two-part question, maybe a little bit of a softball at the beginning. As you're leaving, what's the one thing you've accomplished that you're most proud of? And and then just here among family, you can tell us anything. 6 weeks left to go, no one's gonna kick you out. What's the one piece of unfinished business that you are feeling most regretful about?
I don't think those are softball questions. Those are heavily loaded questions. Well, I'm not a big believer in touting one's own accomplishments. And even now, when I think about the school, I think mostly about the things to do rather than the things that were done. And I think that's the spirit we all need to bring to this enterprise. I'll mention one very important thing that we, not I, we have done in my time as dean, and that is to bring to the Kennedy School a terrific array of new faculty members. We've had a fair amount of demographic transition, as some of the faculty members whom you remember have moved into retirement. That's given us both the opportunity, but also the very heavy burden of trying to find worthy successors for those faculty members. And we brought in just amazing people, amazing young scholars, amazing experienced scholars, amazing practitioners. So we talk about the renewal of the faculty. This is an ongoing process in any school. It's the most important responsibility of a dean in any school, is to make sure that we're bringing in the best faculty members, because those faculty members then build programs, teach classes that attract the best students and enable the enterprise to move forward. So I think the most important thing that I've done is to work with our faculty members at recruiting new colleagues to join us. And a significant number of new faculty members at the Kennedy School, and they are just outstanding. Unfinished business, I still have a list like this, I think, and that's the way you need to come to jobs like mine, and to many jobs, is to think about what you can do next. Arthur Brooks in our faculty, who writes a weekly column in The Atlantic, wrote yesterday, the day before, about turning 60, and the tendency of people to look back and try to rehash their past. He says, no, you've got to, this is the first day of the rest of your life, look forward. But the thing I think, actually, is particularly important piece of business to follow now, is to make sure that we are taking these new faculty members we brought to the school and pulling them together in the most effective programs that we can. And we've done some work, and more work needs to be done about what's in our core curricula, how our programs fit together or don't. And I think we can do even better than we're doing now. I think our current students are getting a great education, but I think with the new faculty members we brought in, as we think about how to put those pieces together, we can do an even more effective job. And that's been an important topic of work at the school this year, but it's work that Jeremy will need to take forward next year and the years after.
Thank you.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for the excellent job that you have done as dean. I'm Barbara Goldsmith, and this is my 50th 50 reunion. And to further complicate things, I actually became involved at Harvard when I was representing the state of Rhode Island in something called the New England Consortium on Environmental Protection, and this gets to my question. This was a consortium 50 years ago or 52 years ago, which was all of the universities in New England working on environmental issues way back. So my question here is that while Harvard is focusing on the issues of the day, both within each school and across the university, what it seems to me that the fabric of society is so broken that there needs to be a broader set of activities. And so my question is, what kinds of liaisons or connections are there with other universities in Massachusetts, across the country, worldwide? Because really some of the ideology and some of the attitude toward education and intellectualism starts really, really young. And so I'm wondering how much of that is the Kennedy School involved in, you know, kind of all those issues that touch upon what you do here, but go both this way and this way.
Well, thank you for the question. So a few thoughts. One is that we are not at the Kennedy School directly involved in education of younger students than the ones who come here. But there are initiatives at Harvard that do that. So Danielle Allen, for example, who's on the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, also now in an appointment at the Kennedy School. And she's worked on civics education, developing an educational program for Massachusetts, but also then spreading to other places in the country. And she now runs her democracy lab actually here at the Kennedy School. So maybe, in fact, we've inherited that in a way. But that's work she's been doing for a while, and she started here this year. But mostly we're focused on college students, graduate students, and so on. Beyond that, we do work with people at other universities in different ways. These tend to be individual initiatives, not school-determined partnerships, because I don't tell faculty members what to do. But our Center for International Development, for example, hosted this past year a huge conference across universities, I think for all of New England, working on international development issues. Some of our economists and people in other disciplines working here on what they call reimagining the economy are doing that in collaboration with economists at other universities. So there's a lot of that going on, but it's driven by individual faculty members seeing opportunities to help do better research, reach different policymakers, train students in a better way as they see them. So these things tend to come and go over time. I also think it's worth remembering that universities and schools at universities should be, we certainly think of the Kennedy School, engaged with the world, but also we do have particular roles as universities, right? And we are not the people to do certain sorts of things. We're here to study, to teach, to distribute that teaching in lots and lots of ways. But we are not, as I sometimes need to remind our students, we are not institutionally the advocates. We're not institutionally the implementers. That falls to other parts of society.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Bridger McGaw, class of 2004 MPP. And thank you for your service for the last 10 years. We really appreciate it. I kind of wanted to pick up on trains of the thoughts and just refocus maybe the softball question. It might end up being hard again. I'm sorry about that. But when reunions are a rare time. So we've heard 50 years. I think there was somebody from the class of 73 who was here.
Yes.
And so people come back for different reasons. I think some of you have come from very far away for this weekend. And so when you have us all assembled and you have your list and you think that Professor Mandel and Professor Heifetz sort of charged us yesterday with recharging ourselves, how do you look at this group, and is there something out there on your list where you hope that we'll organize around? Is there something left undone, or that on the 6th month and a day when you get to return to teaching, that you hope that this group is out there organizing? Maybe it's a few things, but is there something that really still speaks to you that this group should reassert its energy towards?
Oh, I think there are a whole set of ways in which I hope you will always be reasserting your energy. You are the role models for our students. They want to grow up to be like you. And so everything you do in the world, in your jobs and the rest of your lives, that's advancing the Kennedy School mission is good for the school. We point out these examples. Students read HKS magazine. Our faculty members and I know stories of individuals we've talked with. And those examples help to inspire students today. So everything you're doing that's advancing the Kennedy School's mission, as you see it, is in fact advancing the community toward this goal. there are also all sorts of specific ways. I mean, our students clamor for good PAE clients. You can be those clients. And I think your having been here would give that relationship an extra positive boost for them. You can help students find their way into your whatever sectors you're involved with and wherever states or countries you come from. One of the challenges we have in our career services office is that we graduate 600 plus students a year, and they go to something like 580 different employers in 100 countries. And so we can't begin to provide a sort of individualized guidance to the extent that our students would like. And you can help to do that. You can keep informing each other. The Alumni Talk Policy series, right, gives you a chance to keep benefiting from the sorts of interactions that you had here when you were students here. So I think that all these things and many more are things that you all can assert your energies toward, and I hope that you will. The challenge for us is that there are 25,000 degree program alumni, pushing 60,000 participants in our executive education programs over the years. So that's 80,000 or so people, and we have, I think, 4 in our alumni relations office. And so we need to find ways to help you all connect and communicate that don't just involve going back through the one node here. And your alumni board is very actively working to do that in a variety of ways. And so, for example, on the matter of helping to recruit students for the school, there's work underway, and I don't know the specifics, but work underway between our admissions and financial aid office and with the alumni board to make it much more straightforward to enlist alumni who want to help in recruitment to do so, right? And so this is a work in progress, but I think this kind of building some of these structural links should make it easier for you all to connect with the school. And I can't stop the answer without saying financial support is also really, really, really valuable. We have, over the last several years, significantly increased the amount of unrestricted funding we put to financial aid. And we've been able to do that critically because contributions to the HKS fund have increased significantly over the past several years. These are not unrelated developments in the school. And it is crucially important. We've been doing our best to restrain tuition increases, but places like this are expensive. Very individualized instruction with very talented faculty members in high demand. And so it's not a cheap place to run, it's not a cheap place to attend. And we've been able to provide more unrestricted funding for financial aid because alumni and friends have stood up and been generous. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Most importantly, our students are very, very grateful for that. And I would encourage you to do what you can in that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yes.
Pauline Abernathy, class of 1994 MPP. Thank you for your leadership and for your public service. You spoke about the importance of diversifying the students in terms of ideological diversity, which I could not agree more with, both here and at Harvard broadly and institutions of higher education. I want to talk about a different form of diversity. In the fall, data came out showing there had been a more than 50% drop in the number of African Americans and Black students enrolled in the Kennedy School, down to just 9%. For Latino students, also a decline to 11%. I know you formed a committee to address that. You've told us some of the things we can do in terms of providing financial resources, helping to recruit. I wanted to hear a little bit more about what you're doing. In that same article, it talked about the fact that the Kennedy School was the only school at the Harvard that didn't have a fee waiver program at the time. I suspect that has changed, but that would no doubt be a good place to start. But would love to hear more about the things that you've done to address that.
Yeah, so thank you for raising the question. When I became dean, almost the first thing I did was to appoint a task force to think about diversity and inclusion at the Kennedy School. And one of the recommendations was that we actually report every year on the demographic diversity of the school. And we took that and all the other recommendations, in fact, of the report. And now we've done that for 5 or 6 years. And the share of our students who are Black or Hispanic or Latinx basically rose for a few years, which made us feel like we were making some progress, and then it receded. And that receding is very disappointing. So there are several things that we're doing. One of them is that we do in fact have a fee waiver for the application. The second thing, another thing we're doing is that I wrote a letter to the presidents of a number of historically Black colleges and universities, saying that you have some terrific students who might benefit from coming here. We'd like to make that more apparent to them. And then I've had phone calls with our dean of students, with some of these presidents and their deans of students or provosts or what have you, about how we can make it clearer that we are a place where some of their students might want to come and would be admitted, and we could support financial aid where needed and so on. And out of these discussions, we're growing a set of particular connections. So people who will come here will send people. And that's part of Harvard's broader efforts to connect more with HBCUs. A third thing we're doing is that a slightly different group. We have very, very few students from American Indian nations at the Kennedy School, but we have a very important program. You may know of this as the Harvard Project, or the Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development. It is now the Harvard Kennedy School Project on Indigenous Governance and Development, because in fact governance is the key in the mind of Joe Kalt, who's led this program for many years. We've put a lot of attention to this program. We have a new faculty chair, endowed chair, that we're currently trying to fill. We have more project money. We raised $15 million last year for this project. And part of what we're doing now is to use that set of connections to the 500 or so tribal nations in the country. A little analogous to how I describe HBCUs, which is to say, you have some great students who can come here. So there's some retail work of that sort. Another thing we're doing is we've established a new pipeline program. We've had for many years a program which brings students here for a few days. Think of college sophomores or juniors. Say, hey, what is a public policy school about? Why would this be a good place for you? We increased the size of that program by 50%, I think, over the time I've been here. And it works really well. We get outstanding applicants for those few days. But that is a sort of a lot of people for a short period. We have a new program starting this summer, which is sort of the flip of that. It's a smaller number of people for a long period. And this is under the auspices of something called PPIA, the Public Policy International Affairs Organization. Yes, PPIA, okay. They sponsor something called the Junior Summer Institute, which has been running at about half a dozen universities. We're the 6th or the 7th to join. What happens is that, in our case, 15 students will come for a 6 or 7 week program this summer, starting off this year. And those students will get, Professor Sandra Susan Smith and our faculty proposed that we do this. We took up that suggestion. PIA approved us. So 15 really outstanding students from a range of institutions all over the country will be coming for an period this summer, and they will get classes both in public policy to spur their interest and also in quantitative methods to make sure that they're ready to apply and be accepted hopefully to the Kennedy School, or at least to other schools of public policy. And so we're committed to that for at least a few years then under the terms of the PPIA deal. But I think and hope this will be a very important way of our bringing more people into this line of work who might not have found their way here otherwise.
Thank you.
Those are some of the things that we're doing. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, good morning. My name is Juan Remolina, MPA 2014. And I wanted to ask you, for you, which are the 3 most important indicators in order to measure performance of the Kennedy School, and which are the results so far?
It's a fair question. I don't have a crisp answer. We talk when we talk at faculty meetings about people we want to recruit to join our faculty, or whether we should renew appointments or promote people who are already on our faculty. We talk about the criteria that we apply to all faculty appointments at the Kennedy School. And some of the criteria, so one is on research impact. And there are metrics for that. They're not great, but you can look up how many times somebody's work has been cited by other people, as some measure, imperfect, but a measure of whether they're influencing intellectual development in their field. Another criterion for us, a very important one for us, is applied public policy or management, which is how is the work that a faculty member or prospective faculty member is doing, how is that actually influencing the practice of public policy? And for many years, beginning well before I came to be dean, the school has wrestled with, can we measure that? And unfortunately, we keep saying, no, we can't. You can count some things. You can count, mentions in the newspaper. But then our, Matt Bunn on our faculty, who's an expert on nuclear security, says the whole point of his work is never to have it discussed in the newspaper. It is precisely about what he does behind the scenes, very behind the scenes, in places he won't even tell me he's been, to try to advise people on how to reduce nuclear risks. So that's an extreme example, but the point has been a general one here, which is that we're not good at measuring that. And so if you ask how are our faculty doing at their engagement with practitioners, with public leaders, which is one of the key elements of what we do, don't have a way to measure that. But I will say, we think of three legs of our stool. There's the research and teaching and the application, the engagement. On the research side, there are some metrics of success. I don't have a single number to tell you, but the faculty members that we've recruited here over the past several years, over my time as dean, have been winning a lot of professional awards from their colleagues for the caliber of their work. Professor Marcella Alson won the MacArthur Genius Award. Professor Erica Chenoweth was inducted in the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Professor Danny Schneider won the award for the best young demographer, however that young is defined. David Deming and another member of our faculty, actually, with two people who've won the award for the best contributions to writings on public policy for, I think, people under the age of 40. So in the faculty we've recruited, there are a lot of metrics showing their very high value in the thinking in their fields. On the teaching side, this is a little more complicated. We're attracting outstanding students. You talk to our faculty members, they think the people they have in their class are really terrific. Of course, they come terrific. The question in some sense is, what are we adding to them? How much more terrific are they later? How does this change their trajectories? And we don't have a good measure for that either. So we do think about this. We look at the things that we can find. We have some, we bring some appropriate skepticism to any single metric, but we do look at the things that we think we can measure, and I think we're doing well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, hi, I'm Michael Su, class of 2009 MPP. And I'm glad that somebody asked a question about systemic impact from the Kennedy School, because I think that's definitely more important. But I actually do have a question about something that did make the newspaper headlines. And then, I'm not one of those who necessarily think we're more divided as a society than, historically, globally, locally. But then, and then one thing I do think that is true historically and many different countries around the world, including ourselves, is discerning the truth from the different media sources. And so, I obviously was reading about the issues around Kenneth Roth's fellowship, and this is a great opportunity that we actually get to get a firsthand account of the nuances versus the media hype that may have happened around that. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk about, if for other people who don't know, Kenneth Roth was the director of Human Rights Watch, and there was an issue about his gaining a fellowship or not gaining a fellowship, and whether this was an assault on academic freedom versus whether he said things that were truly within the anti-Semitic realm. And so obviously, the newspaper articles went crazy about this, and I would like to give you a chance to give a more nuanced response to that.
Thank you for the question. I'm actually not going to say any more about that case specifically. I didn't say at the time the factors that influenced my initial decision not to approve the appointment. And as I said at the time, I felt upon further conversation with faculty members here that my initial decision had been wrong, and I changed that decision, and he came here as a fellow. But I want to speak to the broader issues. The question of fellows at the Kennedy School has been a complicated one for some time. And I think we've made at least 3 changes that are structural changes that are very positive for the future. So the first one is, and most relevant to this case, is that a fellow's appointment is an academic appointment at a school. And there is no element of academic freedom for faculty members that says they get to make other academic appointments on their own. What we didn't have until the last year is a process for faculty members collectively to approve or not approve proposed fellows appointments. Right? For faculty appointments, we have a very elaborate set of processes. Fellows are lower impact appointments, but not zero impact appointments, and therefore they needed a process as well. So now we have a process by which proposed fellow appointments run through a faculty committee that approves or not. And there are many that they've approved, proposed by faculty members over the past year, but some they have not approved. So we've systematized that process so it doesn't come to my desk. It, like other appointments, is handled by the faculty collectively, but not by individual faculty members making all their own individual choices. The 2 other things we've done that matter here, one is that for some of the hundreds of, quote, fellows of the Kennedy School, some of them actually should be staff members. That matters in various ways. It matters for benefits, it matters for academic prerogative, it matters for the unionization efforts that are underway at universities and so on. And we've sorted that out. So there are a number of people who had been called fellows who are now staff members, which is the more appropriate reflection of what they do. And the third thing we've done of importance is that we've reduced the number. We had been giving away that imprimatur in a pretty casual fashion, and the numbers of fellows had gone up very sharply. And I think given that there is recognition and some honor that's granted through a fellow appointment, we were too profligate with them. We've now reduced the number of fellows substantially. There are still lots and lots of them. I don't want to make it sound like we have hundreds and hundreds of fellows still, and they play very important roles at the school, which is why it's important they be chosen correctly. But we've taken something that was a non-system and made it a more structured system so that choices are made in reliable ways by relevant experts, and we're handling these with the seriousness that they deserve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fred Cooper. I'm MPP 1984. Kind of a 30,000 foot question. We graduated in '84, and that was at a time where there was starting to be this perspective on government as being part of the problem as opposed to the solution. That didn't turn out to be an anomalous moment. You know, it's persisted and become more so. How do you here we are 40 years later with some of the similar discussions and more intensely. How do you, stepping back, change the perspective and the school help change the perspective on government as being part of the solution rather than the problem?
Well, you point to a very big challenge for the school. I think that in this country, certainly, we have, as a society, devalued government service and treated a lot of government employees in ways that are not appropriate and do not encourage talented young people to go into government in the way that we should be encouraging them. And not just we as the Kennedy School, we as a society need very talented people to go into public service. And we have not created, I think, either the particulars of employment or the general ethos of public service in a way that would serve society best. Now, the Kennedy School can't fix all of that, but I think there are a few things that are happening here. So one of them is that quite a few of our students go into public service not through government work. And my roots are in the government, and I'm all for that, and lots of our students do government service. But I think Joe and I at least started talking about how we were a school for people trying to solve public problems. And you could do that through government sometimes, but you could also do that through organizations in civil society, nonprofit organizations that are existing, social entrepreneurship, other ways to address public problems. And I think over time, more of our students are doing that. And you can also tackle public problems in the private sector if one brings the right orientation and the right setting to do that. So we have, in that sense, broadened the way we think about the school from just a school of government to a school of solving public problems for which government is one of the main channels. And I think that reflects both the nature of the society, what the various levers are, and also reflects our students' interests in doing different sorts of things. The other thing I should emphasize is that we have some of this view of government as the problem, I think is particularly acute at the federal level. We have growing attention at the school among the faculty and among the students to state and local governance, or provincial and local governance, because we do this around the world. If you look at the work of the Taubman Center for State and Local Government, look at our new Bloomberg Center for Cities, these are reaching local or provincial state leaders in ways that help them today, but also are drawing huge enthusiasm from our students. And we've been able to arrange a lot of field-based learning opportunities for students at the state and local level, which then encourages them, and we've tested this, it encourages them to go into that sort of service after they graduate. And so one example, is to give credit to alumni, half a dozen years ago, we had some students who proposed something they called transition term, I think was their language. The idea was the incoming mayors, governors, had a short period of time, from early November off into January, to figure out they were going to act when they took the job. But during that period, they had very little staffing. And so we send students. And the students at the time, now alumni, proposed this. And so we sent students this past year, I think, to 15, 20 different incoming mayors, governors, so on. And they worked with the transition teams. And it was a taste. It's a taste of what it's like. And the reports I hear are, this was great, I want to do more of this. And so I think some of what's happening is some shift of focus from what might have been the original focus on national government service to a focus on local service. The other thing to say, of course, is that half our students now come from outside the United States. So they come from countries with a whole range of different commitments to and support for public service in those countries, right? So we have quite a few students who come from the Indian Administrative Service, and they are playing very important roles in their country. They know they are, and they're coming here to tool up to be even more effective at doing that. We also have students who come from places that have essentially no organized public sector, and they're determined to build that public sector. And so the experiences are much broader. Where they come from and go to is much broader than just for those of us who focused on US governance.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Rich Ennis, part of that Fred's rowdy class of 1984. We took Ron Heifetz's first leadership class right over here. We were his guinea pigs. But I like I suspect many of us here, I had applied to 5 different programs, public policy programs, and I got into the Kennedy School. And I picked the Kennedy School over some others that I got a full ride at. And the reason I did was because it felt to me, first of all, the excitement, but also the mission. I was coming out of the Peace Corps, so Kennedy was near and dear to my heart. But I also felt like this was the one institution that had the capability to train the generations, successive generations, to tackle what at the time seemed like really tough problems. Today, those problems seem, the problems today seem to almost pale by comparison. And the question I have is, are we, and I include alumni in this in a very real way, are we as a graduate school doing enough to train, to provide our students that are going out into a world that is at a pivotal point right now, with the tools, with the contacts, with the critical thinking skills, to be able to really rise to the challenge that we're confronting now. So it's a very broad question, and also, and Fred touched on this, rehabilitating the reputation of public service, broadly defined, as you said. It's not just government per se. There's a whole range of that.
So are we doing enough? I don't know. We're doing a lot. I do think we need to be constantly evaluating how we can do better. And that was my earlier comment about our programs. We've worked hard to bring in an amazing group of new faculty members over the last several years. I think we have not figured out fully how to put them to the maximum best use in our programs for our students, to be honest. But it's not that we're not thinking about that. We had a set of faculty committees this past year thinking through various changes we might make in our curriculum of different sorts. We have not reached decisions about those matters because I didn't think it was appropriate for me in my final days to push through some agreement in that way. I think it's better to have this preparation have happened so that Jeremy can come and can lead the school on this next leg and be part of those decisions. I'm sorry. It's okay. Sorry. Thank you. I think but these are hard questions. And so the question about what it is that we should best teach our students, we have a year, or we have 2. What should we be really pushing hard for them to know? That's not a question with straightforward answers. One of the things we need to push harder on them, we decided, is this ability to do candid and constructive conversations with people with whom they disagree. And we're going to spend more time on that. We think this is a skill that can be built, and we can help build it. So there's an opportunity cost of that. Something else won't happen. I don't quite know what it is, but we're going to be pushing in this direction. There's an ongoing discussions at the school about the balance of what are often called hard skills and soft skills, where the soft skills are actually the hard ones, right, to do. And that's been an ongoing discussion for many years here. Our core curricula in the MPP program, the MPID program, focus more on the traditional hard skills. Not exclusively, we teach negotiation, for example. But our students then, with their electives, often spend a lot of time on the, quote, soft skills. We've had a rise in interest in communications courses at the Kennedy School. I think that's great. I think that's very wise of our students. And we hire more communications instructors with various sorts of expertise, writing, speaking, you name it, to meet that demand. So some of what happens over time is that the programming evolves in response to the students voting with their feet on what they want to learn. And some evolves in response to how the faculty think about matters. And some of the evolution is in response to what we hear from alumni and employers. So there was an effort this year, we haven't finished yet, but to write surveys. We've done this occasionally in the past. Maybe some of you have answered these surveys in the past. Surveys of what is it that you found useful about the Kennedy School's learning and what was missing. The last time we did this, we asked both employers and potential employers, meaning organizations that had not hired our students, but we thought maybe they should. And the question was, well, is there some reason you didn't hire our students? What did you think they were missing? So we try to respond to students' own sense of things, to the faculty's sense of what's important, and to some market signals, if you will. And I think this sort of evolution will need to continue to happen. There's also, of course, the question of how much work should we require of students versus letting them find some of their own way. And this is the time of year when students often say to me, I should have gone to more things in the forum. I should have learned more from that. Well, that's a trade-off. Or I should have spent more time talking to my classmates because I love the ones I know, but I don't know enough of them. Well, that's a trade-off with the amount of homework we give too, right? And so these are things I think we need to keep working on without thinking we're going to find the perfect place, but I think we need to keep evolving as the needs evolve. So I think I'm supposed to stop shortly. I can take another couple of quick questions, and I'll go stand out back, and anybody who wants to come by and ask a question you haven't gotten to ask, you can do that. So please.
Hello, Suzanne Goldstein, mid-career 2004. I don't know. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm so happy being back in this room. It just feels, the vibration is so incredible. And I remember sitting here at tables with our classmates from Israel and Palestine, discussing where the wall should go in Israel. And of course, we sit in this day today. But just being around these conversations is just really fun again. So many of us, when we were here, took David King's class on Congress and lawmaking. And at the time, David was working with freshman Congress men and women. And I apologize for all the international students. This is a very US-focused question. He taught civility in those places. I'm curious what the Kennedy School can do now, one, if we're still involved with freshman Congress men and women, and how can we change the discourse? Because even if you look at yesterday, there were 2 women in a judicial hearing screaming at each other about eyelashes and bleach blonde hair. I mean, this has gotten ridiculous. So I'm just wondering what the Kennedy School can do.
Yeah, so that scares me too, that story. We're doing a number of things. So we continue to host new members of Congress as they have been elected. And they come in large numbers. I will say a few years ago, a class agreed here that they were going to stick together once they got to Washington. They actually kicked us out of the room. They drafted a joint statement of how they were going to stick together. I think the problem, naturally, is that then they get to Washington, and there's a big red arrow here, and there's a big blue arrow here, and you're on one team or the other. And I don't know exactly how that. We did some follow-ups with them. They were trying, but this is a hard problem. We also had a project here a few years ago that involved working with the staff members and members of Congress to help them learn how to negotiate with each other. A lot of what happens on Capitol Hill is staff members sitting down. So we worked on it on both levels, and we will continue to do that. Thank you. So you have the last question here. And then again, I will take others
Carol Yu from China, MPP class of 2009. I think it's quite historic that we're seeing such a lack of moral leadership in the world. And we don't want any of our children to look like our presidents anymore. So is the Kennedy School doing anything, like offering new courses or training in this regard to better prepare our future leaders?
So we are trying, which is to say we teach and our students are interested in tackling ethical questions. The royal we, our faculty members have designed some new courses, actually trying to better integrate some of the ethical teaching with some of our teaching about political institutions and how the political process works. We think to help our students better apply the ethics to the practical problems they'll face. I'll say, to be honest, that course is only medium successful because it's a pretty hard thing for us to combine here. And so we keep looking for ways to do this more effectively, and our students are eager for that. But it's not straightforward to do, we found, despite a fair amount of thinking about this here over the last few years. And I think part of the challenge, I mean, I don't want to minimize the importance of what we do, right? But our students come to us having lived a number of years in the outside world. They are still in touch with the outside world. They go back to the outside world. And as they look at public leaders, they don't see as many models of the principled and effective leadership as they should. And we do our best to overcome that and provide better examples and the training to do better while students are here. But we are, in a number of the ways that come up in these questions, we are pushing against headwinds of various sorts in the world. And we need to not give in to those, but be cognizant of them and try to figure out what we can do best in the time we have with our students. But this importance of being principled in what you do, and yet not so believing in one's own approach that one dismisses every alternative view as unprincipled. That's tricky. That's what we're focusing on doing. I think we make a lot of progress on that, but I can't say that's perfect either, and that's an area of continued curriculum development here at the school.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think I'm going to stop. And you're going to go on with the rest of your wonderful program. But I will stand around out here for as long as people want to talk about things. And I'm happy to answer any more of your questions. Let me just say thank you again for your support of the Kennedy School, your support of me, in anticipation of your support for Jeremy. Hope you have a great reunion together. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
As Dean Elmendorf mentioned, if you want to ask him any more questions, he will be in the Acuna Sunshine lobby, and he set aside time for whomever would like to ask him. Thank you all.